Welcome to Light Over Heat with Professor David Yamani. This week is the second of my two-part conversation with Ross Eliot, the former publisher of the American Gun Culture Report, the author of the Occupy the Second Amendment blog, and a self-identified leftist gun owner. We'll talk about some really interesting topics, including communal self-defense. We'll talk about fighting fascism, including fascists who are armed and those who carry badges. And we'll also talk about gun laws in Oregon and how Democrats get that wrong. So enjoy this conversation. So you put the gun culture report to bed, and then you said you started blogging, which is I think at the time was still in its ascendancy. I don't know that
Yeah.
is where it's at used to be, but
It
tell
certainly
me.
feels like it peaked.
Right. So tell me more about the next 15 years.
Yeah, well, after that, yeah, I still had things that I wanted to write about, but trying to coordinate bringing in other writers, I mean, that was all just part of what I had done before and I was kind of moving away from. So, yeah, so Occupy the Second Amendment is it's either me just writing an article about a particular thing that I want to write about related to guns and gun culture, or it's interviews with people. So that's pretty much how that's broken down, and I just kind of do it on a schedule of whenever I have the time, pretty much. Which at this point in my life, with four kids, is not very often. But I do my best
Right.
as I can. I mean, in all reality, a lot of a lot of things have really changed politically, where what in the past was me being into firearms and occasionally taking people out for some target shooting with people that were interested. I mean, with Trump, for first go around, I mean, that really changed because it went from people interested in doing firearms training in what were generally kind of abstract situations, similar to me. Like I have read about circumstances where a gun might be useful for my community or me, but less so. Here is an actual danger that I am facing right now that I'm terrified by, which is what started happening. And it particularly started happening not just here in Portland, but with people out in rural Oregon specifically. That's where things were getting really scary. The cooperation between local militias and the police was way more overt than we were seeing in town here. You had just so many horrifying things happening where people were contacting me and talking about things just like even voter registration drives were getting death threats from local militias and Proud Boys and a lot of folks like that. And people lived in parts of the state where there's essentially no police other than maybe you have your local sheriff and a couple of deputies, and people knew that, well, if I'm scared because I'm getting threats from local fascist groups, why would I call the police? Because it's only two guys, and I know that that's their bros. So
Right.
for so many people in so many parts of Oregon, 911 was just not an option if you were afraid of the people that were threatening you and your family. And I was frequently hearing from people that were getting death threats against themselves, against their children. So yeah, I was going out to rural parts of the state
Mm.
and doing hands-on firearms training with people where the fears they had were not academic.
Right. Right. So that earlier sort of train of firearms ownership for communal self-defense that continued on,
Mhm.
but maybe under
Mhm.
more dire circumstances, I guess you might characterize it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, things started getting a lot more real as far as the things that we had to worry about here. I mean, we had a fascist rally not that far from my house here, where yeah, there were Proud Boys turning over cars, and there were militia guys driving around trucks, pointing rifles out of their trucks at people in the neighborhood here. Yeah, it was really scary. I mean, a lot of stuff that people used to talk about. Well, I want to have a gun in case things get that bad. Well, here we are.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well, Portland certainly, I think, became a sort of flashpoint and a symbol of some of those clashes, marching
Hmm.
and counter protesting and physical conflict in the streets. Really,
Hmm. Yeah.
were you involved in those sorts of things, or more of a
Mhm.
outside observer? And
I was pretty knee deep in everything from 2017 up until 2020, and there was a lot of pretty intense stuff. I wasn't involved in any of the ones where there were exchanges of gunfire. We did have one situation um, where some right wing guy showed up to a march downtown and actually opened fire on the people there. Didn't hit anybody, and one of the armed march security people then fired back at the guy, and then he ran away and was subsequently arrested.
Hmm.
But nobody got hurt that time. Um, we had certainly other sensational instances that made a lot of the news. I mean, we had the Max stabbings with the local fascist guy that stabbed a bunch of people.
Right.
And then actually, one of my very dear friends got shot 4 times in the Ventura Park shooting, and that was actually after 2020. That was just a few years ago,
Hmm.
where a local fascist decided to take their gun and go down to a police accountability march and shot a whole bunch of people and killed some people. Fortunately, my friend survived, but she did get hit a bunch of times, and it's pretty miraculous she survived.
Wow.
But yeah, that's all been stuff on my periphery. I've been in a lot of really tense situations for sure because of the kind of actions I was brought in on. Um, but a lot of the moments that were pretty scary for me were more along the lines of there's a big lifted pickup truck going down the sidewalk trying to run people over, and what are we going to do about it? Because when you have scary dudes in pickup trucks trying to intimidate people, well, we can't open fire on a vehicle that isn't actually in the act of running people over, you know. But at the same time, how do you respond to that? Well, looks like we're mostly going to be trying to get people to get out of the way of the vehicle here, but what are they going to do next? Are they going to decide they're going to come around again and open fire? I mean, that's a lot of the way things like that have escalated. I mean, we had a situation like that. Oh, where was it? Like a couple of weeks ago. I forget what city, but there was an anti-Trump march, and again,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
always guys. It's always guys in pickup trucks. I have a pickup truck. I'm a facility worker, of course I do, but it's my people. But yeah, again, a guy in a pickup truck trying to run people over, and then getting out with his rifle, and that one was de-escalated. But yeah, things like that. So many times stuff like that's happened. So
Hmm.
yeah, trying to run security in situations like that. Yeah, I'll, that, that, that's been some of the more high stress situations that I've been in. And for me personally, COVID ended that. At the time, I I I'd been in housing for 10 years, and my main building that I worked at was a women's shelter with 63 residents, and mostly women in their 50s and 60s, just like the absolute most vulnerable population that you could imagine for a COVID outbreak to hit. And I just had to make the decision at that point that I'm withdrawing. And so I at that point just let everybody know, sorry, I'm gonna do everything I can to support from the sidelines at this point, but I'm gonna have to take a step back here.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that and shortly after that happened was when my family expanded to taking on four foster kids, and so that really has curtailed a lot of the real direct action political work that I'd been doing up to that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think that makes sense. It's interesting the way you characterize some of these conflicts. Really, kind of goes back to some of the differences within gun culture that you're talking about in the gun culture report, and
Hmm.
what people
Hmm.
talk to me about a lot, because I talk about defensive gun culture 2.0, but that
Hmm.
the idea that it's uh, that's only, I think, the first
Hmm.
step in an analysis. Yeah, so people want firearms for personal, family, or community defense,
Hmm.
but how do they imagine
Hmm.
what the threat is that they're defending themselves against? And
Hmm.
I,
Oh yeah.
sometimes use the Spider-Man meme where you have the three Spider-Man, all pointing their spidey
Hmm.
fingers at each other, and
Hmm.
that's all gun culture 2.0, sort of
Hmm.
in that circular firing squad, in a sense.
Hmm.
And so I think that's
Yeah, yeah.
something that
Hmm.
that I think maybe I don't convey enough, but really talking to you and reading the report really makes me think about, like,
Hmm.
the that you really do have maybe left leaning or left wing gun culture that oftentimes is facing off against a right wing, right leaning gun
Hmm.
culture. In some of those scenarios of going out into rural parts of Oregon and training people,
Hmm.
to defend themselves against the militia and the state, that really, I
Hmm.
think, tracks along with that idea. So, hopefully
Hmm.
these are ideas that I'm maybe indirectly encouraging you to
Hmm.
write about in the Occupy the
Hmm.
Second Amendment. Although you may have already, I can't claim to remember everything you've written about, but these are some
Oh, sure.
real
Yeah.
things happening. And as someone going to
Hmm.
the NRA annual meeting next week, I'm just
Hmm.
always kind of
Oh,
have
yeah.
an element is, it's how much of Trump land am I going
Hmm.
to go into versus, it's in Atlanta, right? The capital of Black America.
Hmm.
How much of that aspect
Hmm.
of gun owners are going to turn out for the event. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's always so infuriating to me talking to conservative gun owners and hearing the kinds of just unreal and abstract things that they're worried about. Like, wh well, why do you have a gun? Oh, because I'm afraid someone's going to break into the house and steal my television, or I'm concerned about homeless people in my neighborhood, and I'm worried because fascists have shot my friends. Like I have seen bullet holes in people because of encountering their local fascists. I have had, again, guys in trucks yelling racial epithets at my kids because I got black kids, and they, even at their young age, they've already been threatened by dudes in trucks yelling at them in a public park. Those are the kind of reasons that I feel like my community is in danger. It's not that sometimes I see people doing recreational drugs like in a public place. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, that's that's pretty low on the things that I'm worried about comparatively.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
But but yeah, the
oh, go ahead.
oh, you froze up a bit there.
Oh no. No, I think we were talking over each other, so I was just
Oh, there's
deferring
a bit of a
to
bit of.
you. Uh-oh.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. The NRA, and going to the meeting there. So we in the last couple of years here, we had a big local measure 114, big gun control measure, and it ended up passing very very close, but it did pass. And the NRA I think they ended up donating something like $12,000 to the effort confronting it, which was really funny to me because even with the small amount of clout and resources that I possess, I was able to raise about $2,000 to fight the measure. Sadly, unsuccessfully, but yeah, just the mighty NRA that people just allegedly quake in their boots before the political power of could only pony up this just embarrassingly small amount of money to combat. Whereas, of course, the Bloomberg groups were just pouring
Mm.
I believe over $1 million into their efforts that yeah ultimately prevailed. But yeah, the sad story on that one is that the measure passed and then it was held up in the courts, and now it is being kind of circumvented and brought into effect through the state legislature, which is Democratic Party dominated. So that one's coming at us pretty strong right here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this I think that's indicative of the NRA's self-inflicted wounds. Now that it's spending all of its money
Hmm.
paying for attorneys, that it needs to defend itself
Yeah.
for all the stupid things it's done. And it's interesting because
Yeah.
the one part of the NRA meeting that I always try to avoid is the NRA Institute for Legislative Action political day,
Mm.
whatever, where they basically bring out all the Republican governors or any Republican who wants to come and speak. They come out. Trump's been the last couple times, and
Mm.
so I was just trying to find out when it was. So I made sure I scheduled myself away from
Mhm.
that, and I couldn't find it on the NRA's website. So I asked someone on the inside. I said, "Hey, when is the ILA leadership summit happening?" And they said it's not happening this year. That it was
Mm.
canceled, and possibly canceled because nobody would agree to show up to talk. So the NRA may be seen as
Wow.
so toxic that or maybe with Trump in the White
Mhm.
House, people don't feel like they need to rally for their rights. But
Mhm.
usually you
Hmm.
get the governor of Louisiana
Mhm.
or someone is willing to come out and talk to the group. But I thought that was very, very interesting and indicative of the NRA still kind of trying to find its footing again.
Yeah, really taken a dive on the credibility front. That's for sure. Yeah, I can well understand why a lot of people would not want that brand near their own.
Yeah.
Yeah, even on the right now. Hmm.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, that is
it's
so
like,
interesting. Yeah.
I always feel like it's almost sort of two organizations. You have all the education and training side, and then you have the political side,
Mhm.
and the education and training side can do a lot of good. First shots program, and range safety
Mhm.
officer programs, and things that really no other organizations
Mhm.
do, or at least don't do on any kind of large scale. But
Mhm.
the political side has become so toxic that it undermines the other side of the
Yeah.
house. So, and I mean, maybe it was never possible to fully
Mhm.
disaggregate the two. Maybe that's just something I did in my
Mhm.
mind to sort of allow myself to be
Mhm.
more at ease in that situation. But I'm
Mhm.
always interested to go to the NRA meeting because so much happens there, and so I'll be interested to see where the organization is going, in terms of
Mhm.
righting the ship, or whether the old guard is going to stay in
Mhm.
control, and so there's always a little bit of intrigue going on there.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, I mean, I'm not someone who likes to give the NRA a lot of credit for stuff, but yeah, the kinds of education they do, as far as the apolitical safety side of things, and just making an effort to get it out there. I mean, yeah, I gotta say that probably has a lot to do with one thing that you wrote about in your book about in a lot of ways the surprisingly low number of firearm accidents.
Yeah.
that you might expect to see more of in the United States. And yeah, they really have put a lot of effort into gun safety, and that's a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
that's certainly one of the main things that I teach. I mean, I've done a lot of firearms instruction in my life, but I'm not like I'm not so much on the tactical end of things. There's a lot of people that do that much better than me. I primarily look at myself as kind of a very basic kind of instructor. I'm not going to teach you how to be a good shot. I'm just going to tell you how to handle your gun in a way that yeah is going to be basically effective and teach you a lot of safety stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's something that they've done well.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that every gun owner can use. I have a hard time when I'm talking to people about their concerns about gun violence and really um, the misperception of how many people are injured or killed annually uh, by accidental
Hmm.
gunshot injuries is so small. I mean, obviously too many, and when they're kids, it's
Hmm.
like so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But you know, there's
Hmm.
far greater dangers out there for accidental injury and death out in the world, and it's which is,
Hmm.
as you said, remarkable given 90
Hmm.
million gun owners and 400 million guns. But the
Yeah.
most everybody who dies from a gunshot wound is either
Hmm.
intentionally shot by someone else or intentionally shooting
Hmm.
themselves. So I just think that shifts
Hmm.
the nature of the problem. You have to understand the nature of the problem if
Hmm.
you're going to begin to address it in an intelligent way. And some of these things that are
Hmm.
really directed toward, as I think you, as I recall, this legislation in Oregon, it's
Hmm.
requiring 8 hours of training or some large amount of gun training, right, before you can
Hmm.
get a permit.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that are really alarming about it, and so, some of it's just kind of the stuff you'd expect, like yeah, magazine limitations and um, that kind of thing. But yeah, the amount of training that would be required to get a permit, I mean, that's a real gatekeeping issue for a lot of people. And the part of it that is the most terrifying to me is you basically need to get your local sheriff to sign off on you buying a gun. And that might not be such a big deal in a place like Multnomah County where I live, where I'm not such a big name that our local sheriff has ever heard of me. I would imagine that they probably wouldn't think too much about rubber stamping an application if I decided to buy a new gun. But in these rural places where the local leftist activists who are actually out there standing on street corners with signs complaining about the injustices in the world. I mean, the local cops know them, the local sheriff knows them, and you're very likely having to apply for a gun permit to the exact same person who put a picture of you on the local cops Facebook page, which they do. I mean, out in these rural counties, the cops have like a Facebook page, and they'll put stuff on it, and they will put pictures of local activists and say these are undesirable members of our community, like people that have not had any criminal conviction, like haven't done anything other than exercise their First Amendment rights. They will put disparaging comments about people in their community out there, and then that's the person that you're supposed to be saying, I would like to buy a gun. Is it okay?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine being in that circumstance. Yeah, and having to then look to that person to let you exercise a constitutional right. It's just
Right.
mortifying.
Well, right. Then now they just take that application, they notify the FBI, and then they send you to El Salvador. Even I think this is what
Yeah,
the president
right.
was making plans for that
Hmm.
just this past
Yeah.
weekend.
Hmm.
So yeah, these are I think
Yep, exactly.
these are ways of preventing people from exercising their constitutional rights, whether it's a monetary barrier, a time barrier, a
Hmm.
permission barrier. But I
Hmm.
think certainly you know the notion that it's being done in the interest of gun safety when really the people who are being injured by
Hmm.
guns are being injured intentionally, not because of some irresponsibility on the part of
Hmm.
someone who's trying to acquire a gun legally. That I think that this is
Hmm.
where some of that failure to connect is really
Hmm.
happening. And I know myself, I've been trying to take any opportunity I can to speak across these divisions and say, look, hey, we're not for criminal gun violence here. We're not for suicide. We let's figure out
Hmm.
where we can make some inroads there while still allowing people to
Hmm.
exercise this right without undue interference. So it's a struggle. This is not
Hmm.
where the majority of conversation seems to be happening, but I feel like it's important.
Hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's very frustrating because gun owners on the left get caught between b both sides of the vice. Because yeah, on one hand you have encroaching fascism, and then you have Democrats that can't seem to do anything to oppose fascism, but they can sure get their act together when they want to give the police more power to enforce more gun control laws. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just incredibly infuriating to see that. Like they just can't seem to get their act together when it matters, but then yeah, as soon as they want to give those cops more power to bring about around these laws that are only going to be enforced on people who do not have same skin color I do. I mean, the cops out in rural parts of the state have openly said that they're not going to enforce laws like this. And of course, you got a lot of Portland liberals who are supporting these laws because they look at it and they think, oh, well, this is how we're going to disarm the militias. This is how we're going to keep all those horrible right-wing people that we dislike. This is how we're going to disarm them. And the sheriffs are literally saying, no, we won't. We absolutely will not. And then,
Yeah.
of course, the police in Multnomah County, who, of course, are the ones that are happy to spend all their time sweeping camps and enforcing drug laws that, of course, disproportionately affect folks of color. Well, if we're just giving them more laws to enforce, how's that going to break down? We should know by now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, and anytime you're using, war on some fill in the blank, right? War on drugs, war on crime, war on guns, that it always breaks in the
Mhm.
same direction and not, in a way that
Mhm.
affects,
Mhm.
me or, my family or the
Mhm.
people I work with or my fellow liberals, at the university. It always is going to affect, the
Mhm.
people who are the most disadvantaged just to begin with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, any time I've had an interaction with the police, they are very considerate and polite and understanding. And when I hand them my CHL, oh, they want to chit chat about, whoa, what kind of gun you
What
carrying
kind of
today?
gun do you have? That's right.
They give me the gold star treatment. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, they'll want to chit chat about it. Yeah, there's been any number of times. Yeah, um, yeah. I mean, there was a time even where I was out of state. I was in I was in a public park with a friend of mine after hours. I think it was one of those things where the park closes at dusk, and we were in we were in the park after dark, which maybe it was a gray area, maybe not, but also well, how favorable are the police officers going to be in that kind of a situation? Is it technically after dark? Is it not? But yeah, I was stopped and questioned with my friend, and when they discovered that I had a gun, their first response was not, "Oh, you're an out of state uh, CHL holder," which they didn't necessarily know actually even covered that state because I have the Oregon, Washington, no, the Oregon, Utah, and Arizona
Hmm.
triple combination, which does actually cover Washington. But I mean, that's actually some kind of that's sort of some obscure gun nerdery, and I didn't even give them my my other states. I just handed the cops my Oregon, which does not in and of itself cover Washington. So as far as they were concerned, I was an illegal gun owner trespassing after dark, and instead of giving me a hard time about it, they were very concerned that I stay safe. They were saying, "Oh yeah, it's certainly good that you're carrying a gun because you're in a public park after dark. Bad things happen here. Don't you know? You got to be a little more careful. But
Hmm.
good thing you got that piece on you."
Yeah.
And yeah, we can certainly imagine yeah, the headlines if it had been oh, police found a black man carrying a possibly illegal gun, trespassing after dark, and clearly a real danger to society that they had to gun down for their own self-protection.
Mm. Yeah. No, unfortunately, you don't have too much imagination to get from A to Z there. So I think that's just one of the sad
Yeah,
realities
absolutely.
of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I bring that up a lot because I mean it's just some of the most clear examples of privilege that exist. Because of how I look, I mean, I'm a butchy white dude and I look like a lot of the cops. I mean, when they interact with me, they see their buddy. They see someone that yeah, looks like the kind of people they hang out with, and so they're going to give me all the grace in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, that's a real story. But I love hearing your story all the way
Mhm.
from start to finish. The BB guns, the focus on the family to get your BB guns, and
Mhm. Yeah.
the American Gun Culture Report. So much a great history of this period of time in the gun culture, but told from a very different perspective. And I wish more people could have access to it or to see it because I think there's so much talk right now about women are buying guns and queer people are buying guns and racial minorities are buying
Hmm.
guns and all of that is already captured. Liberals and leftists are buying guns. It's already all captured in there, and so
Hmm.
we're kind of rediscovering something that. And I try to tell, like, if journalists call me, I say, yeah, there was an acceleration during 2020, but these are all trends
Hmm.
that have been in place, for 20 years, for 30 years, for 50
Yeah.
years, for 100 years, forever. And
Hmm.
it's hard to get that across when there's so much attention just to what's happening right now. But this is really,
Yeah.
I think, captures a lot of what's happening today in a tremendous and interesting way. So I really appreciate you sending me those, and I really enjoyed talking about those.
Yeah, yeah, and I've really appreciated your writing, both online that I've been following, and I've got a copy of your book here, which
Oh,
I very much enjoyed reading.
that one, that's a beauty. I have one back there too. I have to have it for promotional
Oh
purposes,
yeah,
but
yeah, I see it. I see it.
um, but yeah, I keep writing when you have time. I think you really, you have a distinctive voice still and a lot of perspective. And I always am excited when I get those email notifications that something's come up on Occupy the Second Amendment. And hopefully, this won't be the last time we have a chance to chat. Thanks for tuning in for this second conversation with Ross Eliot. If you missed the first one, loop back and check it out. I hope you found something of interest in it, maybe something to challenge your perspectives, or at least feel that I brought some more light to the heat that too often occupies our conversations about guns. If there's somebody that you'd like me to talk to interview, or to have a conversation with, let me know, put it in the comments. If there's specific questions you'd like me to try to answer, please also do that. I'm really here doing this work primarily in order to engage folks in productive and useful conversations and thinking about guns. I really hope I do that, and I appreciate your support.